We're going to go on Daf Mesechtes Nedarim Daf Tezvav. Begin on the bottom of Daf Yudal and Beis, 6 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara begins a discussion that relate back to the halacha of Mishnah. We started this discussion by quoting the Mishnah regarding when someone takes a neder regarding sleep, speaking, walking, or telling a woman that you're taking a neder that you're not going to have intimacy. So he said that is the lo yachal devarai, which will explain the Gemara exactly why that terminology lo yachal devarai, and also how are you violating lo yachal devarai? How could you even have a neder on somebody that doesn't have substance like sleep or regarding speech? Cheers corresponds because everyone is joining today's daf. Something discussed in today's daf are the case of the Mishnah of koinim shani yashim, taking a neder that regarding sleep. So the Gemara is obviously going to have to address this. How can a neder take effect on sleep? So if it's going to be, well, there's a neder on my eyes regarding having sleep today, but even that the Gemara is going to assume is too simple of a case. What's the Mishnah come to tell us? So the Gemara is going to discuss regarding that. It seems like it's regarding when there's a stipulation. There's a neder. I'm not going to be able to sleep today. If I sleep, if I sleep tomorrow, which that's going to be dependent on Machlikas reading of Nachman, the Gemara. Do we say b'tno mizdar? Do we say a person was careful regarding a t'nai, or was a person only careful regarding a isser? So if a person's gonna say, if I sleep tomorrow, well, are you careful regarding tomorrow? What happens if it's the other way around? Let's say, oh, if I sleep today, then tomorrow is gonna be the net. Rav Ashi says that you could explain the halacha by Mishnah not necessarily the t'nai, but rather actually, rabbinically it could be a neder even regarding sleep that something has no substance, although biblically it has to be something shares by mamish. Rabbinically we're going to say, and that's actually going to be why possibly the wording is harisa b'lo devari, because it's a rabbinic isser. The Gemara continues regarding another case of kain misha'amni mishamshich, regarding if I take a neder that I'm going to have intimacy with you. The Gemara is going to explain it must be talking about bo'ima hanos tashmishcha alai. That he says the pleasure of your tashmish is on me because you cannot make yourself prohibited, because tashmishi alecha it's not effective because the mishtabed law, because he's obligated to her, so you can't not take a neder to violate the halacha that the Torah says that you have to give the wife tashmish. Also the Gemara tells us if someone takes an oath that he's not going to sleep for 3 days, malkanai say you give him lashes right away, but yashma alter and he goes to sleep, he could sleep right away because you cannot go that long without sleep, and therefore it's considered a shiur shav, and one does not have to keep that oath. So we begin the current Daf Yudal and Beis, 6 lines up in the bottom of the Amud. We had said in the Mishnah, someone takes a neder, if I'm going to sleep, if I'm going to speak, if I'm going to walk. So we said that it's prohibited. So the Gemara introduces a teaching, Machlikas Rav, that's going to relate directly back to the halacha of our Mishnah and how to understand the halacha of our Mishnah. Seitma we learned as follows. What happens if someone says, Koinim einai b'shin hayom? So it's taking a neder that I'm not going to go ahead and sleep. My eyes are prohibited from having sleep today. In ishan lamacher. If I sleep tomorrow. So again, it's important to get the order. We're talking about where the neder is on today. I'm not allowed to have sleep today if I sleep tomorrow. That's the condition. So it's going to be activated if he sleeps tomorrow. Today was forbidden. So what's the halacha? Some of you the Merav, he says, Al yashan hayom. Don't sleep today. Why? Shema yashan lamacher. Because he might sleep tomorrow. He's not going to fulfill his condition. It's going to come out retroactively. He violated by yachal what he slept today. Right? There's a neder, I cannot sleep today, prohibited to sleep today, if I sleep tomorrow. So, says Rabbi Yehuda, don't sleep today, because you might sleep tomorrow. If you sleep tomorrow, it turns out you violated your neder. If you don't sleep tomorrow, you didn't. But don't sleep today, because you might sleep tomorrow. That's how Rabbi Yehuda holds. But, Rav Nachman says, no. Yashna yom. You're going to go to sleep today. We're not going to tell him he's going to sleep tomorrow. It's only prohibited today if he sleeps tomorrow. Don't sleep tomorrow. You could sleep today, and there's no concern. That's the machlekes. Now, that's regarding that case specifically in the order that we described. But Rabbi Yehuda agrees that it would be problematic the other way around. If the guy says, I'm taking a vow that for my eyes to have any sleep tomorrow, im ishan hayom, if I sleep today. Oh, over there, we're saying, meaning to the contrary, meaning according to Rabbi Huda that said it was prohibited in the previous case, here he holds, Sheyashnayim, you could go to sleep today. Why? Why isn't it the same thing? Don't sleep today because you might sleep tomorrow. No, it's different. As it continues up to 12 Med Aleph, because Kiloi Mizdahir, when did Rabbi Huda say that a person not going to be careful is B'tnoi, is in the stipulation of the following day. Because since that's not the primary Isser, it's just a stipulation for the first day. But regarding the Isser, since it's the primary Isser, even though it's not Isser on its own, only in combination with the first day, even so, a person of a Be'isser is Mizdar, a person is going to be careful. So he would agree that in this case, you would be allowed to sleep today. So although when it's the other way around, when you say, today is forbidden, if I sleep tomorrow, it says, then you're not allowed to sleep today. You didn't do anything wrong yet, but no, because you're not going to be careful tomorrow. Because that's just a tonight. But if you say the other way around, say, oh, if I sleep today and the tomorrow's forbidden, you could go to sleep today. Why isn't that the same thing? Because tomorrow's the Isser. And then a person can be careful with the Isser, but tonight, a person's not going to be careful with it. That's how Rabbi Huda holds. So the Gemara says, tonight, the Gemara asks from the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, now this is where it takes us right back. We're going to go through to understand the halacha of the Mishnah. You're going to see, says the Gemara, that it's exactly the case that the machlekes of Rabbi Huda and Rav Nachman. We're going to prove you not like Rabbi Huda. Because what our Mishnah said, it's not. Said, if someone takes a neder, Shani Yashin, I swear, that's it, there's no sleeping for me. Shani Mahalach, then I'm going to be walking, or Shani Medaber, then I'm going to be speaking, etc. So he said, okay, you're usher. That is below Yachal Devarei. Says the Gemara, wait a second. In other words, what's the wording of the neder that this guy took that you're saying he's usher, he's below Yachal Devarei? If you think it's like the literal words that we said in the Mishnah, the guy takes a neder, a koinim, Sha'ani Yashin, I'm going to sleep. What, me have a nidra? Do you think that's going to be a neder? Which the Ran says, it would appears to him what the Gemara is trying to say is, if you'd be able to say that it's exactly like we learned in the words of the Mishnah, then the Mishnah would not be difficult to Rabbi Yehuda. Because then you could say that the Mishnah is not talking about, as we're going to momentarily say, that it's with Tanoim and with the Isser, which the case Rabbi Yehuda was talking about. No, we're talking about a guy takes a neder that I'm not going to sleep. And what would be the chiddush in that? That even though there's no object for the neder to take effect on, still the neder would take effect on. But that's what the Gemara is saying. You cannot say that because we learned the brisa that says such a case would not take effect. Because Batanan, which really a brisa, the brisa says chayma b'shvuos. There's stringencies that oaths have over vows, over Nadarim. What's that stringency? Shashvu is chalas al davar sheish b'mamash. A shvuah, which on the gava, on the person, therefore it doesn't have to take effect on the object. It could be in something that has substance, or a davar sheish b'mamash, or even something that doesn't have substance, like sleeping. Masha enki min nadarim, a neder is in the object. You're basically saying in this chapter, you're seeing the kedusha in it. That's how the Svarim HaKadoshim explain what a neder is. You're showing that everything has the spark of divinity in it. You're saying this is also aser, but that's in the object. B'shina davar sheish b'mamash, and sleep is something that doesn't have substance. So how could you say that it's literally the case of the Mishnah that koinim shani yashin? That doesn't make sense. You can't have a neder on sleep. Neder doesn't take effect on sleep. It has no substance. Oh, okay. El de Omar. Rather, you're saying it must be talking about where the guy says, no, koinim eini b'shina. I take a neder prohibiting my eyes from having sleep. In other words, and this is what the chiddush of the Mishnah has come to tell us, where okay, so there is something that's taking effect on, which is the eyes, it's a chetza, and the Mishnah is going to tell us that although it's not possible without sleep, even so, if you sleep not because of blindness, okay, you're going to violate Bayachal Devarei. Maybe that's what the Mishnah is saying. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. But if you didn't say for how long, you're saying when he goes and he violates it and he sleeps, okay, then he's going to be over Bayachal Devarei. What, you think we let him until he violates Bayachal Devarei? In other words, do you think the neder would even take effect at all? Since it's not possible for him to ultimately fulfill the entirety of this neder, it's not true. Because what Amr Yechon says, if a guy makes a shvuah, shleishin shleishiyam, I swear I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. The halacha is malkanai. Say now, the reason why we give him lashes, it's not because he violated his shvuah, his shvuah is bitui, which is the oath of enunciation, which is what I am going to do, what I'm not going to do. No, we give him lashes because of shvur shav, because of he took an oath in vain, v'yashin la'alta, as the Ran explains, if he wants to, he can go to sleep right away, because his shvua did not take effect to make him prohibited in sleep at all. We're just giving him lashes because of he took an oath in vain. So here also, how is the neder taking effect? You're saying I'm not going to sleep? What, for how long? You just said sleep? That's not a neder. We give you malchus and we say stop taking oaths in vain. So Elorada says the Gemara must be talking about the Amar, where the guy says like this, that he says, Kainim eini b'shina l'macha. Must be that he's saying that I take a neder on my eyes, prohibiting it from sleep tomorrow, im ishan hayoim, if I sleep today. Meaning, as the Ran explains, you can't say that it's talking about what the guy says, very simply, what do you mean? Kainim eini b'shina hayoim. Taking a neder that my eyes should be prohibited from sleep today. Why? That would be the best case scenario. It's not for unlimited amount of time. It's not for more than 3 days, so it's not shvur shav. It's on a chefza, it's taking effect on his eye, and that's it. So why isn't that a good interpretation of Mishnah? Says the Ran, no, because if that would be the case, that would be pashut, says the Ran. Well, of course doesn't mean that. Rather, the Mishnah must be telling us that be careful not to sleep on the first day when you made the Tanai, so that you don't come to violate lo yachal devari tomorrow. Says the Ran, that's why, and the Ran, we had, Ran alluded to this in the Mishnah. He had said, why is it by the laws of Shvuas? It says the same case of She'eni Yashin, She'eni Hoyle, and there it says Aster, and here it says Hareza B'lo Yachal Devarai. So the Ran said, I'll explain the Gemara. So along the stages of the Gemara, he explains, that's why it says Hareza B'lo Yachal Devarai. It doesn't say us. You know why? Had it said Isser, now, you can't say Aser because we're talking about on day one. Day one is not Aser mitzad itself. It's that you don't come to day two's Bal Yachel. We're telling you in the Mishnah, if a guy said, Kainim She'ani Yasham, what we're saying he's saying is, no, he's saying that if I sleep today, then I'm going to be Aser tomorrow. So today we're telling you can't sleep. That's not Aser. It's Harezeh B'Bal Yachel. It's going to bring you to Bal Yachel Devar. That's why it says that terminology. And that's what we're saying, that you're not allowed to do that. So says the Gemara, wait a second, that can't be the interpretation of Mishnah either, because Ahmed, you already told me according to everyone, Kol Bi Sureh, whatever comes to the actual Isra itself, Mizdahir, a person is careful. So you can't say the Mishnah was telling you that you're not allowed to sleep today. If you said, if I sleep today, it's going to be also tomorrow, then you told me everyone agrees that you will be careful. So you could sleep today. This is finally we got to the point that we wanted to say, and this is where the question is on Rabbi Yehuda. Elab Shita, rather, obviously the Amar's talking about where the guy says this way, Kainem Eini B'Shina Hayoim. I'm taking a neder on my eyes that it shouldn't sleep today, Im Ishan L'machar, if I sleep tomorrow. And that's what we're telling you that you cannot sleep today. Now, says the Gemara, if a guy doesn't sleep today, meaning he's saying, well, it depends how you interpret it, but the Gemara says, if he doesn't sleep today, if he's going to sleep tomorrow, my bayachal devarika. What type of bayachal is there by him sleeping tomorrow? What are you telling me that you're not allowed to sleep the following day? What do you mean? Rabbi Yehuda told me that you're not allowed to sleep on day one, when the Isser is, because you might come to sleep the following day by the Tanai. But if you tell me that no one sleeps today because of you to hold you can't sleep, so if you're going to sleep the following day, my bayachal devarika. Elolav, rather, obviously, and this is what the Gemara is just like basically spelling out, but denying. Obviously, you're telling me if the guy slept today, then it's going to be asa tomorrow, the bayachal devarika. On the when you don't keep the Tanai, today is going to be that you will over the Isser. Oh, but Alma, obviously we see that Isa denying that there are those who sleep today, as the Ram explains. The Mishnah is obviously telling us, when it says Harizah b'Bayachal Devar, what it means to say is that it's permitted to come to a situation that you might violate Bayachal. When they say Harizah b'Bayachal Devar, this could create a situation of that you might be over Bayachal. Because if a guy wants to sleep on the day one, we don't tell him don't sleep, so that it shouldn't be possible for him to come to Bal Yachal Devarim. Because what's the case that, the Ram discussed exactly what is really the Gemara understanding, but this is how the Gemara understands it originally. It says, V'tif Rabbi Yehuda, or Fritz Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's us, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the case doesn't start. Because the Gemara's understanding that it's on the tomorrow, on the next day, the case of where he says that I'm taking a neder today, if I sleep tomorrow, and we're saying, oh, that's tonight, tomorrow, you're not going to keep that tonight, that's going to be Oger Bal Yachal, or as the Ran explains it, he says that it could come to a situation of Bal Yachal of tomorrow because the guy's sleeping today. So essentially it's saying, if a guy says that I take a neder today, if I sleep tomorrow, so that the Gemara is saying, how is it Bal Yachal Devar? What the Ran says, that means this could come to Bal Yachal Devar. How could it come to Bal Yachal Devar? Because you're going to sleep today, and then tomorrow, be careful because you might violate Bal Yachal by not keeping it tonight. What do you mean? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't come to that. We don't let you sleep today. How could it come to a situation that you might violate Bal Yachal Devar? So you see now like Rabbi Yehuda, you see obviously Meken Shlofen on day one, and that you'll be careful with it tonight, the way Rav Nachman says now like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara, no. Kiktani, when did the Mishnah say is the Einayim, if you're going to sleep? So as the Ran explains, to the contrary, the Mishnah is actually telling us Allah of Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah is telling us like this: be careful not to sleep on day one. That's what it's saying. Arizah Bayachal Devar says don't sleep on day one, because if you sleep, it's very close. You're going to come to Bayachal Devar. Why? Because the person's not careful with Tanaim, with stipulations. Today is the Isser. Tomorrow's just a tonight. It's not tonight, I already slept yesterday, and this is what it's going to be tomorrow. So therefore, he's not going to be careful. So Harizah B'Achadbar is talking about today, not tomorrow. So it's actually Rabbi Yehuda's halacha. It's telling you today it's going to be by Achadbar, and therefore you see his halacha that now let's sleep on day one. So that's one approach. How to explain the halacha of the Mishnah. It's a very convoluted way that we got there. But ultimately, the Gemara wants to say it can't be this, can't be this, can't be this, can't be that. Must be the case of the Mishnah is talking about where there's a stipulation that my eyes are going to be forbidden today if I sleep tomorrow. And then there's a machlekes. Is that showing Rav Nachman's halacha? Because it's saying that you obviously slept day one and then you might but there's going to be a situation you might come to Bal Yachal the next day, but you're allowed to do that? Or is it the contrary? Is it actually saying Rabbi Yehuda's halacha that's saying no, you can't sleep today because it's almost for sure you're going to violate Bal Yachal tomorrow? That's the case of the Mishnah of Koinim Shani Yashin is with it tonight. Now the Gemara gives, however, another approach. Rabbi Namni says, no, you don't have to go through this whole pshatel and as if it relates to halacha of Yehuda and Rav Nachman. No. Lo'ilam Kediktani, truth is, it's like the words of the Mishnah. All the guy said was, Sha'ani Yashin. I take a net that I'm not going to sleep. He doesn't say your fancy wording, Eini B'shina, that my eyes in sleep, and then you have this whole thing, okay, but how does it help with how long, and this and that? No. Even though sleep does not have substance, so the question is, my Bal Yachal? So what's this Bal Yachal? There's no neder over here that you shouldn't profane your words. A neder only takes effect in Davashish by Mamish. On the Chefza, there's no Chefza on sleep. Says Ravina, it's Midrabanon, rabbinically. That is rabbinic halacha, you're right. Midarais has to be yesh by Mamish. Rabbinically, it's even named by Mamish. And that's why says the Ran, again, pointing out the same idea. That's why the Tana says in the Mishnah regarding Nedarim, regarding these cases of sleep and all these cases, it says Harisa b'lo devarai. And it doesn't say also like it said by Shavuos. You know why? Because by Shavuos, by an oath, it's asim ikra din. Because that's even on the Davar she'in be'amamish. Nedarim, it's only going to be forbidden rabbinically because, like he calls lasa the bayachal, means like a trace of bayachal. Meaning, I don't want to say the word isser, because it's not be'etzmet isser. It's like, it's related to bayachal devar. But it's rabbinic, not biblical, and therefore it says a different wording. And again, it's also obviously not biblical under Yehuda, because it's not even talking about a case of Tanai, of Koinim today, if I sleep tomorrow, it's no shaykh, it's talking about a rabbinic halacha of yes, Koinim Shani Yashin, which is going to take effect. So the Gemara asks, Mika Bal Yachal Midrabanan, is there really such a thing as a rabbinic Bal Yachal? Says the Gemara, yes, I'll show it to you about time like Linda Brisa. Dvarim HaMitarim, if let's say something is really permitted, but other people, their custom is to treat as forbidden. So Allah is, you now go ahead and permitted in front of them. Like it says in the pasuk, lo yachil devaro. You cannot profane his word. So even though it's not God's word, it's this person's word, he treats it as forbidden, you're not go ahead and permit it for them. So you see that even though something is not really forbidden, but the halach is going to be that if they treat it as forbidden, we're going to consider it as forbidden. And therefore, we see a source for this idea of that you could have this idea of rabbinically this being as forbidden, even though it's not be'etzim, something that's awesome. So nothing more continues going back to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so the Mishnah is not necessarily difficult on him for two reasons. We had two different interpretations of the Mishnah. The next Gemara says Tanah. We learn the Mishnah later on of Nun Zayin Amid Aleph. It's a little bit of a complicated case. Very simply, only because of the way of visualizing it. So the Mishnah says like this. If let's say the husband says, Sha'at nanisli, that you are going to have any benefit from me, meaning from what I have, that's forbidden Ara Pesach, up until Pesach time. Im telchi lebeis avicha arachad. Sounds a little bit of a controlling husband. Says that, you're not going to have any benefit from me up until Pesach. If you go to your father's house, up until the following Sukkot. Okay, so what's the halacha? Says the Mishnah like this. If halcha lefnei Pesach, if she went to her father's house before Pesach, obviously asur b'no say ad Pesach. Obviously, she's forbidden to have any benefit from him up until Pesach, because it's all the way up until Sukkot if she goes, and the Israel knows up until Pesach. So if she went before Pesach, for sure, be forbidden. Imagine where we are right now, right? We're after Sukkot, we're in Cheshvan, right? And he says you can't have any benefit from me up until Pesach. If you go till the following Sukkot, and she goes before Pesach, obviously she'd be forbidden to have enough from him up until Pesach. Now, the inference is Hocha lefnei Pesach asura. It sounds like if she goes before Pesach, then she's forbidden. But loy holcha, she doesn't go, then loy, meaning that she would be permitted to have benefit from him before Pesach, as long as she didn't go. Meaning, it sounds like if she went before Pesach, then she can have benefit from before Pesach. But if she didn't go, as long as she didn't go, even though his words were that you're going to be forbidden to have benefit from me up until Pesach. If you go to your father up until Sukkot, now, what is that called? That's Isser and T'nai. Isser up until Pesach. If the T'nai, which is up until Sukkot. Wait a second. If she didn't go yet, you tell me that she can still get meals by her husband? But wait a second. But the T'nai is going to be all the way for another 6 months till Sukkot. People are careful about a T'nai? Oh, that's not like Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda says people are not careful regarding it tonight. I can't let her eat now, because then retroactively she's not going to be careful with the tonight, and then she's going to be violating this nether. You see, obviously not like Rabbi Yehuda. Some of the Babbi says no. That's not the way you should read the diuk of the Mishnah. It goes like this: if she went before Pesach, then asura, then yes, obviously she's forbidden to have benefit from him. And v'loika, in other words, she gets lashes. And the Ram just points out he's not going to get lashes. He didn't do anything wrong. He just made a neder on her, but she'll get lashes. Loy holcha, what the diak is, if she doesn't go, it's only a surah ba'alma. It's only just a prohibition, because obviously there's no actual isser itself to get malchus over here, but it is going to be at least rabbinically forbidden according to Rabbi Yehuda to have benefit, because we're concerned. You're not going to be careful regarding the tonight. So it doesn't contradict Rabbi Yehuda. You would still be forbidden, you just wouldn't get malchus. So it does fit. But it says, wait a second, Ema Seifa. Look at the end of that Mishnah. Mishnah says, okay, if she actually goes after Pesach, let's say she goes after Pesach, before Sukkot, okay, Bayachal Devar. She's violating Bayachal because you're not allowed to go up until Sukkot. So it's after Pesach, but in the summertime, in the bungalow, she goes to visit her father in the Catskills. Okay, you violate Bayachal Devar. So wait a second. What's the case told in Sefer? If you tell me like Rabbi Yehuda, that she obviously didn't eat pizza as Kegel with her husband up until Pesach, because remember, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't eat with him because you might not be careful with the T'nai in the summer months. So Mika Bayachal, what do you mean? If she goes to the father in the Catskills in the summer, is it going to be Bayachal? Bayachal, she didn't eat Kegel with her husband up until Pesach. El Pshita, rather obviously, if you tell me that there's going to be Bayachal if she goes to the Catskills in the summer, is this honey? That she obviously ate Kegel with her husband till Pesach. Oh, Amos, obviously you see that Mesami. Obviously you see that when you say Isser Hayoim and Tanai Lamachar, that you're generally careful. We let you eat kugel up until Pesach, because we're not concerned. And therefore, if you do go to the Catskills and visit him, you're going to be over Balyach on the kugel retroactively. Says the Gemara, it's a 10 days, but you're Rabbi Yehuda. That refutes Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not allowed to. We don't let you. So you're never going to come to Balayach on the bar. Obviously, see not Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, no, Kika Tani, the Mishnah is only saying the E is Tani. If she ate kugel, if she had benefit from him until Pesach, then Hareza Babayach al Davar. Then she's going to eat, and she's going to go after Pesach up until Sukkot to visit her in the cats. So then she's going to buy the Bayach al Davar. In other words, that itself is what we're coming to tell you, that she, the Ran explains, that therefore she should be careful not to have benefit from up until Pesach, so that because if she goes after Pesach, she shouldn't come to Bayach al Davar. So again, the Ran is saying it, the Gemara is basically saying, to the contrary, it's actually saying like Rabbi Yehuda. Don't go eat kugel, because you might go visit him, and then you'll be violating Bal Yachal. But not that we let you go ahead and eat kugel up until Pesach. The Gemara says, no. The Gemara asks another question from the Mishnah over there. Here it goes the other way around. Here it's Sha'at Nenesli Arachak. Here the husband is extending the prohibition timing, but limiting the Tanai part. Meaning, he says, I'm taking a net you can't have benefit from me. Let's say it's like we are in Cheshvan right now. You know, up until next year's Sukkot, you cannot have any benefit from me. If you go now during the winter months, up until Pesach to your father. So that's the Tanai. So the Tanai is shorter than the Isser itself. So the Mishnah says like this. If she goes before Pesach to her father, which is in that time that she's not allowed to go, so obviously she's not having benefit from it all the way up until next year's Sukkot. Now, but she is allowed to go to her father after Pesach. Well, that would seem pretty obvious. The Tanai was only up until Pesach. So the Ran explains, meaning we're not concerned that maybe she's not going to recall that she violated the Tanai before Pesach. And if we let her go to her father after Pesach, she might actually come to have benefit from her husband, thinking, oh, now it's after Pesach, now I'm allowed to go, and maybe now I'm allowed to have anah from him. So we would have thought to say that, okay, she shouldn't rabbinically be allowed to go, so that she remembers that she's actually still forbidden to have benefit from him up until Sukkot. Okay, that's a parenthetical chiddush, not negated to our sugya, but that's all we're saying. We're not concerned with that. She's allowed to go to her father after Pesach, because that wasn't part of his Tanai, that he's saying you're not allowed to do that. But the diuk is like this. Okay, it sounds like from the Mishnah only of Holcha. You tell me, if she went before Pesach, then Asur then she would have been to have benefit to eat kugel with her husband up until next year's Sukkot. Loi Holcha. Sounds like if she didn't go before Pesach, then Loi. Then she would be permitted, meaning it sounds like even if it's still before Pesach, she would be permitted to eat kugel with her husband. Meaning, if we said the let's say it's Purim time, and she didn't go yet. Sounds like if she went, then you're forbidden. But if she didn't go, even though let's say it's only Purim time, sounds like she could eat kugel with her husband. But wait, but she might not be careful for the next month till Pesach. She might go visit her father. So you see, obviously now like Rabbi Yehuda, you see that person is careful with the Tanai. Some Rabbi says no. It's not true. Even if she didn't go, she would be forbidden. Because like Rabbi Yehuda said, we're concerned she might not keep the Tanai. But again, the same type of answer we gave in Oman Aleph. What we were saying in the Mishnah was, Halcha, if she went to her father, which therefore that activates the Isra of the Neder, then that's still like it. Then it's not only forbidden for her to eat with him kugel, but she's even going to get lashed. So that's a Neder up until next year's Sukkot. Lo Halcha, if she didn't go, then that's still ba'al. That's not, you're not going to get malchus, but it is going to be prohibited because it is going to be like a Yehuda, and we don't trust you that you're going to keep the Tanai, and we don't let you eat the kugel because if you do, you might come to violate. You might go visit your father and thus retroactively violate by Yach. You might ask Mason, but you might ask from a Brisa another question on Rabbi Yehuda. The Brisa says, "Kikar zu alai hayed." Okay, this loaf of bread is forbidden on me today. This piece of cake I'm not eating today. You know, if I go to that group tomorrow, if I go to that store tomorrow, then this loaf of bread is forbidden on me today. Okay. Says the Brisa, if he ate the loaf of bread today, hariza b'bal yelech, so he's prohibited to go to the store tomorrow. Now, the Ran explains that the assumption of the Gemara is this, that it says achal in the past tense, like b'di'evet, is really saying oichel, that you could eat it, because the Tana is saying all types of cases of isser, because it said achal harei b'bal yelech, halach harei b'bal yachal devarim. Now, if it was true that likatchila you wouldn't be allowed to eat, it should have also said this as isser. It should have said that no, that harei b'bal yoichel. Why is it saying achal harei b'bal yelech? The Gemara understands it right now to say, yeah, because you're allowed to eat. Just don't walk tomorrow. Wait a second. Who's that not like? That's not like Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't eat today because you're not going to keep your tonight for tomorrow. This is the case of Issa Hayom tonight lo acha. Why are we saying achal? What says achal? Don't say achal. Say hariza b'bal yoichel. Just get hariza b'bal yelech in all these different cases. So the Gemara says no. The Gemara doesn't like that in the sense. The Gemara says miktani oichel. Did we say he could eat? Achal ketani. It says if he ate. That when he eats, then he's going to be prohibited to walk to that store tomorrow. In other words, since we're saying that he ate, which sounds like b'di'evet after the fact, so we're saying to the contrary. You know what it's teaching us? It's actually teaching us Rabbi Yehuda's halacha. It's saying that the eating is only going to be b'di'evet after the fact. But like at chila, you should not be eating, yes, because of Rabbi Yehuda's halacha, we can tell you're not going to keep it tonight. Okay. Now, the Brisa there continues and says, halach, if he did go tomorrow, that's it, you violated the neder that you took. So the Gemara says, mahalech loy. The way the Ran reads this is, we didn't say mahalech, to go, and therefore v'kash Rabbi Yehuda. And this is difficult on Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean? So the Ran explains, in other words, if Rabbi Yehuda's halacha would be true, that we don't let you eat on day one, because you might not keep the tonight the following day. You know what the Mishnah should, you know what the Brisa should have said? It should have said a different independent teaching. It should have said mahalach, if you go, you're not violating by yachad devarim, meaning not going on the case of the Reisha. It should have said like this, mahalach ve'ena b'lo yachal, because presumably what it's talking about is on day one you said that, okay, this loaf of bread is forbidden for me if I go to the store tomorrow. On day one, we don't let you eat according to Rabbi Yehuda. So, how can you just say, halach, if you go, it's b'bal yachal? What do you mean? But I thought we don't let him eat on day one. Meaning, you said a case of achal. Hariza b'bal yachal. It's hariza b'bal yelech. You don't go tomorrow. Okay, that means b'di'evet. According to Yehuda, why didn't it say that in general, when you take this neder without relationship to the previous of having eaten on day one, forget about achal, a new case. It's the same case, but fresh start. A guy took a neder that this loaf of bread is forbidden on me if I go to the store tomorrow. It should say mahalach. He's allowed to go to the store tomorrow, and there's no bayachal. Why should it have said that? You know why? Because the guy didn't eat yesterday. How do I know? Because it's forbidden to eat yesterday according to Rabbi Yehuda. So it should have told us you're allowed to go to the store on the following day because we know you didn't eat the previous day. Why doesn't it say that? That's difficult on Rabbi Yehuda. So Amlach Rabbi Yehuda really would tell you, you're right. Hu adin, the listening mahalach. The truth is that it should have said this case of that you're allowed to go if it would have said independent teaching. But I did the Reisha. Since the Reisha mentioned achal, that if he ate, that we cannot say that he could eat, like Rabbi Yehuda's teaching, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, not let him eat, because you might not be careful with it tonight, tomorrow. So Tam the Sefer halach. So the Sefer also said the case of, regarding that you're not allowed to go because you already ate. Now, the Ram makes it a little bit more complex. That would sound very simple. Okay, so of course you could go, but we're just saying, if you ate, then you're not allowed to go. But the Ram explains, he says, that's why we didn't say that if you go, you're not going to have a problem bal yachal, because had we said that, we would have understood it to say that even though that if you ate on day 1, you're allowed to go on day 2, and it's not going to be bal yachel. Now, how would that make sense? We would explain the whole brayso like this. Sometimes if you eat, there's going to be bal yelech, and I'll go the following day. In other words, when you ate deliberately, which is that you recall that you're not allowed to go, that it's dependent on your eating, then obviously it's going to be then. Now, sometimes, even if you ate on day 1, you could go on day 2. For example, if you ate on day 1 by mistake, in other words, that you didn't recall at the time that you ate that the isser of your going is going to be dependent on your eating, and actually in such a situation, if you go on day 2, it's obvious from the sugya of kikares in Perek Shvur Shtem Basar Daf Chav Chesem and Aleph that actually wouldn't be a problem. Now, however, it's because the Tana wasn't talking about this halacha, therefore the Sefer he says that of halach, which is just continuing the isser if you ate. But the truth is, you're right, we could have said this, we could have said that even you could even go sometimes even if you actually ate on day 1. And we could have said it, but again, we weren't talking about that, therefore we only said halach, but you're right, it's not a difficult interview. We could have said it, we just weren't talking about that. Now the Mishnah, the second half of the Mishnah had said, isha. Someone says to a woman, his wife, I'm taking a neder or korban, that if I'm going to have intimacy with you, so okay, you're prohibited based on your neder not to profane your words, and I'll have intimacy with her. That is the Gemara. How could you say that? Biblically, you're obligated to give the wife the intimacy that she wants. It says the pasuk in Shemais. Although this talking by the Omer we learn out that every single woman's like this, that her clothing, her food, and her intimacy, you're not allowed to diminish, and you have a biblical obligation. Now the Ran says, if you're going to say, what's the question? The Gemara Kesubas the Testament base tells us that kainamais, a kainim, which is a carbon, is a neder, has a kedushas haguf, has a physical sanctity, and that physical sanctity removes it from any shibudim, any liens, any responsibility that it has. So even though there's a shibud that the husband has to the wife, but the kainim takes effect that removes that shibud. Says the Ran, but when do we, just like we say over there, that the rabbis strengthen the shibud of the husband, meaning the rights that he has, that we're not going to exclude his rights, so too the rabbis strengthen the shibud of the woman, and they didn't allow that kind to remove that shibud either. So therefore, back to the question, her shibud would not be excluded from his kainim. So how could we understand the halacha of our Mishnah by him saying, I'm taking a neder that we're not having intimacy, that it would take effect? So that the Gemara answers that you're right. That if we would talk about that he's making himself forbidden on her, you're right, that he can't do, because biblically he has shibudim to her, responsibilities to her. And it'd be like forbidding someone else's properties on someone else, but you can't do that. You can't make someone else's property on that person forbidden. But here it's talking about a specific case. He says, Hanos tashmishcha olai. He says, the pleasure of your intimacy is forbidden on me, which is he's forbidding himself with our intimacy. And he doesn't want to have this intimacy. And to make himself forbidden, that he's allowed to do. As we find the Amr of Kahana says, if a woman tells her husband, Tashmishi Olecha, my intimacy is forbidden on you. That's it. You're not getting anything from me. We force her, and she has to give him intimacy because the shibud mishabat this life. This is an obligation that a woman has to her husband. But if he says the pleasure of your tashmish, she says the pleasure of your tashmish on me, then actually it is going to be forbidden on him. Why? Because we don't feed to someone something that's forbidden to him. So I can't make it forbidden on you because I have shibudim to you, but I'm saying yours is forbidden on me. And that's now forbidden to me because I can take a neder on myself. So although I have obligations to you, but Lamaisa, it's like chazir to me. And therefore, ultimately it's going to be great. It takes two to tango. So although you can't do it on the other person, but now the other person can't force you to violate your own personal prohibition of chazir, of having this hana of tashmish, which you took on yourself. Now the Ram does say, he asks a question, he says, wait a second, this neder is only rabbinic. Why is it rabbinic? Because it's a hana of tashmish. A neder doesn't take effect on something that doesn't have substance. Tashmish is not something that, it's a verb. It's not something of object. So it's only rabbinically a neder. And you can't say, no, koinem gufcha alai mitashmish. Maybe we're talking about where, like we always interpret, we say, no, a neder, your body is forbidden on me from intimacy, so there is a chefza, there is an object, is the husband's body. No, he says, no, you can't say that because it's similar to the cases of Ani Yashan or Ani Medaber, which Ravina had explained. What are the cases of our Mishnah? He said it's a rabbinic bal yachal. Ravina didn't say like the first interpretation of the Gemara. Ravina said, oh, Taka, you're right. It told about actual sleep. So he said, then how is it bal yachal? He said, oh, it's rabbinic. So then, according to Ravina, the Seifa would be the same thing of the case of the woman and the intimacy. So since it's rabbinic, so how could the neder that he's taking take effect if it's only rabbinic? How could the rabbinic neder exclude a mitzvah of oina, which is the conjugal obligations of the husband to the wife, and the mitzvah perivivra of having children, which have a mitzvah deraisa of having intimacy, which is the mitzvah perivivra, because you don't have the ability to create children. You have to do what you can to, which that's the act of intimacy. So how could his rabbinic neder come and preclude that? Says the Ran, Lamaisa, since the neder is taking effect, because it's rabbinically a neder, Memela, he says, by default, it's going to remove all these mitzvahs. How's that possible? So that's a well-known Talmudic dictum that we know that the Chachamim could be Eiker Davim and Atayri. They could uproot a biblical halacha, what's called B'Shem Al Taisa, in a passive way. So they're not telling you, don't do mitzvah perivivra, don't do mitzvah vayna. They're just saying that this is going to be a neder. So passively, that's going to say, hey, wait a second, what's with these mitzvahs? Okay, passively, they're allowed to violate, uproot a biblical law. And one final question he has, it says, wait a second. When he says, Hanos tashmishcha alai, the pleasure of your intimacy is forbidden on me, why is it going to be forbidden? The mitzvahs lav lahanis nitnu. This is a mitzvah, right? A mitzvah of oina, mitzvah perivivra. So, you should be allowed to still have intimacy. What are you saying? I'm not allowed to have the pleasure of intimacy from you? What's hanoah? This is not hanoah. This is a mitzvah. So you should be allowed to go ahead and have intimacy, even though you have this neder on yourself. Says the Ram, very important principle. It says, when do we say mitzvahs lav lahanis nitnu? That's to say that the fulfillment of the mitzvah is not considered as hanoah, as pleasure. But if your body's going to get pleasure at the same time when you're performing a mitzvah, well, that's going to be hanoah. You're having this act of intimacy, which in the world is the greatest act of pleasure. You're going to be having that pleasure. Forget about the mitzvah. The mitzvah is not hanoah, but this is going to be having hanoah, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yomi. Someone takes a neder prohibiting himself from a spring of water. He's allowed to taivel in the winter months, because that's a kalta mikvah. Breaking the ice on that mikvah is not pleasurable at all. And the mitzvah itself is not considered having hana. But in the summer months, no, you can't go to the mikveh now in that spring. Because, the mitzvah not having hana, but you're really enjoying yourself there, dipping there in that spring. That's what we say, mitzvah lahanis, and therefore this would be a violation, even if the mitzvah is not lahanis. But you're going to be having hana, therefore, this is a val neder, has a val echad devarai, even though it's rabbinic neder, and therefore that's going to be the case. Although he cannot make it forbidden on her, because he has obligation, but he can make it forbidden on himself. And therefore, for him, you cannot force a person to eat something that's forbidden for himself. Think to any time.